Beloved, welcome into this sacred moment. This is not just another Monday morning, and this is not just another prayer. Today, Monday, the 16th of March, 2026, you have stepped into a divine appointment. Before the noise of the day rises, before agendas, deadlines, and distractions demand your attention, we are positioning our spirit to speak first. When you start your day with prayer, you are not reacting to life. You are legislating in the realm of the Spirit. Heaven is attentive, angels are on assignment, and the atmosphere is ready to respond to the authority of a praying believer. Prayer is not a ritual. It is a governmental act. When you pray, you are not begging, you are aligning, you are declaring what is permitted and what is forbidden in your day. You are drawing boundaries around your peace, your purpose, your destiny. This morning, we are setting the tone. We are establishing order where chaos tried to form. We are calling forth clarity where confusion attempted to linger. We are inviting divine wisdom to lead every decision, every conversation, every step you will take today. As you prepare to pray, I want you to understand this. Today will not control you. You will govern today. The power to shift outcomes, to cancel delays, to activate favor, and to unlock divine momentum is released when you open your mouth in faith. So breathe, settle your spirit, and get ready. This prayer is not just something you listen to, it is something you enter. The moment you agree in prayer, heaven moves on your behalf, and your Monday is no longer ordinary. It becomes orchestrated by God. Prayer is not a passive moment added to the day. It is the moment that determines how the day will unfold. When you pray, you are stepping into your God-given authority to govern outcomes rather than submit to circumstances. From the very first breath of the morning, prayer establishes who is in charge. It declares that your emotions will not dictate your decisions, that pressure will not dominate your peace, and that fear will not negotiate your future. Prayer is the believer's legal right to speak before life speaks back, to set spiritual laws in motion before natural events attempt to take control. When you pray, you are not reacting to what might happen. You are authorizing what is allowed to happen. Every day arrives with invisible possibilities, unseen resistance, and spiritual traffic moving in the background. Without prayer, a person walks into the day exposed, responding to whatever shows up loudest. But prayer shifts the posture from reaction to rulership. It is the moment where you take your seat of authority and declare that this day will submit to divine order. Prayer gives structure to time, meaning to moments, and direction to steps. It is how chaos is restrained before it gains momentum, and how confusion is silenced before it finds a voice. When you pray at the start of the day, you are announcing that heaven has jurisdiction over your schedule. You are saying that your thoughts will be aligned, your words will be measured, and your actions will be intentional. Prayer becomes the command center from which wisdom is released into meetings, conversations, and decisions. It sharpens discernment so you can recognize opportunities disguised as interruptions and avoid traps disguised as invitations. Authority in prayer means you are not guessing your way through the day. You are moving with divine intelligence. Spiritual authority is exercised through spoken words, and prayer is where those words are first released. What you declare early determines what you encounter later. When you speak in prayer, you are setting parameters. You are declaring what will not have access to your mind, your emotions, your relationships, and your purpose. Prayer draws lines in the spirit and enforces them in the natural. It says anxiety cannot trespass, distraction cannot dominate, and delay cannot settle where momentum has been commanded. Prayer also establishes identity before activity. Before you do anything, prayer reminds you who you are and whose you are. It anchors your confidence not in circumstances, but in divine positioning. Authority flows from identity, and prayer reconnects you to that truth every morning. You are not a victim of the day. You are not authorized participant in shaping it. You are not powerless against pressure. You are empowered to override it. Prayer recalibrates the soul so that external voices lose their influence and the voice of God becomes primary. When prayer governs the day, emotional reactions lose their control. Offense does not get permission to linger. Frustration does not get to set the tone. Prayer preloads your spirit with patience, clarity, and strength. It prepares you to respond instead of react, to listen instead of assume, to act with wisdom instead of impulse. Authority in prayer gives you emotional stability before challenges arise. So when resistance shows up, it finds you already fortified. Prayer also gives you authority over time. Instead of feeling rushed, overwhelmed, or behind, prayer aligns your pace with purpose. It removes unnecessary pressure and sharpens focus. When you pray, you invite divine efficiency into your schedule. You begin to move with intentionality rather than urgency. Time starts working with you instead of against you because prayer orders priorities and eliminates distractions. Authority over the day means you are not scattered, you are directed. In prayer, you also legislate peace. Peace is not the absence of activity, it is the presence of alignment. When prayer governs your day, peace becomes the environment in which everything else operates. Decisions are made from calmness, not chaos. Conversations are handled with grace, not tension. Authority in prayer establishes peace as a non-negotiable standard rather than a fragile feeling. It becomes the atmosphere you carry, regardless of external conditions. Prayer positions you to intercept what was meant to derail you. Many disruptions are neutralized not when they appear, but before they ever manifest. When you pray, you close doors that were never meant to open and open doors you did not even know existed. Authority in prayer allows you to cancel assignments of distraction, delay, and discouragement before they take form. It is proactive rather than defensive, intentional rather than accidental. When prayer governs the day, you begin to recognize divine timing. You know when to move and when to wait. You sense when to speak and when to remain silent. Authority in prayer tunes your spirit to heaven's rhythm so you are not operating out of pressure, but out of precision. This sensitivity protects you from unnecessary battles and positions you for strategic victories that require minimal effort, but maximum obedience. Prayer also governs your inner narrative. The thoughts you allow to repeat in your mind determine the direction of your day. When you pray, you take authority over those thoughts. You replace doubt with faith, fear with confidence, and worry with trust. Prayer becomes the reset button that clears mental clutter and installs clarity. Authority over the day begins with authority over the mind, and prayer is the tool that enforces that alignment. As prayer governs the day, faith becomes active rather than theoretical. You begin to expect divine involvement in ordinary moments. You anticipate wisdom in simple decisions and favor in routine interactions. Authority in prayer trains your spirit to look for God not only in miracles, but in management, not only in breakthroughs, but in balance. The day becomes sacred because it is stewarded through prayer. Prayer also establishes spiritual boundaries. Not every demand deserves your attention. Not every voice deserves your response. Authority in prayer gives you the discernment to say no without guilt and yes without fear. It clarifies assignments so you do not exhaust yourself trying to fulfill expectations that were never divinely authorized. Prayer governs energy as much as it governs outcomes. When prayer leads the day, gratitude becomes natural. You begin the day a way of provision before you see results. Authority in prayer cultivates a posture of trust that attracts favor. Gratitude in prayer shifts your focus from lack to abundance, from pressure to possibility. It reminds you that you are not starting the day alone, but partnered with heaven. Authority exercised in prayer also strengthens resilience. Challenges do not disappear, but they lose their power to intimidate. Prayer equips you with endurance before resistance arises. It fortifies your spirit so setbacks do not shake your confidence and delays do not erode your hope. When prayer governs the day, perseverance becomes sustainable rather than exhausting. Prayer establishes spiritual momentum. What begins in alignment continues in acceleration. Small victories compound, clarity builds upon clarity, and confidence grows with each decision made under divine guidance. Authority in prayer keeps you from drifting and anchors you in purpose, allowing the day to unfold with intentional progression rather than random motion. As the day unfolds under the governance of prayer, you begin to recognize divine fingerprints in moments you might otherwise overlook. Conversations align, timing works, insights arrive unexpectedly, and doors open with ease. Authority in prayer does not eliminate effort, but it ensures that effort is fruitful, that movement is meaningful, and that progress is not accidental, but orchestrated, unfolding step by step as you move forward, grounded in prayer, aware that every hour, every interaction, every decision is operating under a higher command, sustained by alignment, reinforced by faith, and continually shaped by the authority you exercised at the very beginning of the day through prayer. Before the world begins to demand your attention, there is a higher order that must be established. Divine order does not happen accidentally. It is intentionally set through spiritual alignment. When you establish divine order at the start of the day, you are inviting heaven to arrange what would otherwise feel scattered. Order is the language of God. From the beginning, God brought form to what was formless, structure to what was empty, and direction to what was undefined. In the same way, your day requires alignment before activity, structure before movement, and clarity before engagement. Engaging daily responsibilities without divine order is like building on an unstable foundation. Tasks may be completed, conversations may happen, and progress may appear visible. Yet beneath the surface, there is strain, frustration, and unnecessary resistance. Divine order removes friction. It aligns effort with purpose so that energy is not wasted on distractions. When order is established early, responsibilities no longer feel like burdens, but become assignments connected to meaning. Divine order begins internally. Before schedules are set and plans are made, the heart must be aligned. When the inner world is disordered, external order becomes difficult to maintain. Prayer brings alignment to thoughts, emotions, and intentions. It quiets internal noise so that clarity can emerge. When the heart is settled, decisions become easier, responses become wiser, and priorities become clearer. Establishing divine order internally ensures that external responsibilities are handled with grace rather than pressure. Each day comes with competing demands, but not all demands are equal. Divine order helps distinguish between what is urgent and what is important. Without this distinction, the day becomes reactive, driven by interruptions rather than direction. When divine order is established, priorities are clarified. You begin to recognize which responsibilities require immediate attention and which can wait. This discernment protects peace and prevents burnout, allowing you to move through the day with purpose instead of urgency. Daily responsibilities are meant to be stewarded, not survived. Divine order transforms survival into stewardship. It reminds you that time, energy, and focus are resources entrusted to you. Prayer at the beginning of the day brings these resources into alignment with divine intention. It prevents overextension by highlighting limits and encouraging balance. When order is established, you know when to push forward and when to pause, when to give and when to rest. Establishing divine order also affects how you engage with people. Interactions become intentional rather than reactive. You listen more carefully, speak more thoughtfully, and respond more patiently. Divine order removes emotional clutter, so relationships are not burdened by unresolved stress. When the day begins in alignment, conversations carry clarity instead of confusion, and connections are strengthened rather than strained. Without divine order, distractions easily take control. Small interruptions multiply focus fragments, and the day feels constantly behind. Divine order guards attention. It narrows focus to what truly matters and minimizes unnecessary diversions. Prayer strengthens the ability to remain present in each task without being pulled in multiple directions. Establishing order early prevents the mind from being scattered later. Divine order also brings rhythm to the day. There is a natural flow between work and rest, action and reflection, effort and renewal. When this rhythm is disrupted, exhaustion follows. Prayer restores balance by aligning the day with sustainable pace. It prevents extremes of overworking or disengagement. Establishing order allows productivity to be steady rather than frantic, consistent rather than exhausting. When divine order is set, responsibilities no longer compete with one another. They fall into place according to priority and timing. Tasks that once felt overwhelming become manageable because they are approached with structure. Order does not eliminate responsibility, it organizes it. Prayer becomes the tool that brings clarity to what needs to be done now and what can be done later. Divine order also shapes expectations. Unrealistic demands often create unnecessary pressure. Prayer helps recalibrate expectations so they are aligned with capacity and purpose. It removes the need to prove worth through constant activity. When order is established, productivity is measured by faithfulness rather than busyness. This shift brings freedom from comparison and performance-driven stress. Establishing divine order prepares you to handle challenges without losing focus. When unexpected situations arise, they do not derail the entire day. Order creates flexibility within structure. Prayer strengthens the ability to adjust without becoming overwhelmed. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond with composure, adapting while maintaining alignment. Divine order influences how decisions are made throughout the day. Rather than rushing choices under pressure, you approach decisions with discernment. Prayer sharpens perception so you can evaluate options clearly. Establishing order early prevents decision fatigue later. When clarity is present, choices are made with confidence rather than hesitation. When divine order is absent, small frustrations accumulate and create larger emotional weight. Prayer addresses these issues before they escalate. It releases tension and brings perspective. Establishing order resets emotional equilibrium so minor inconveniences do not become major disruptions. Peace becomes the operating environment rather than a fragile state that is easily disturbed. Divine order also impacts productivity. Work done in alignment is more effective than work done in haste. Prayer brings focus that enhances quality, not just speed. Establishing order ensures that effort produces meaningful results. Productivity becomes purposeful rather than mechanical, intentional rather than exhausting. Order established in the morning extends throughout the day. It influences how transitions are handled, how time is allocated, and how energy is managed. Prayer becomes the anchor that keeps everything aligned as circumstances shift. When responsibilities change, order provides stability so adjustments are smooth rather than disruptive. Divine order creates space for reflection within activity. The day is not consumed entirely by doing, but includes moments of awareness. Prayer nurtures mindfulness, so you remain connected to purpose even while engaged in routine tasks. Establishing order ensures that activity does not replace alignment. As divine order governs daily responsibilities, the day unfolds with greater ease. Tasks align, priorities remain clear, and focus is sustained. Prayer continues to influence every aspect of the day, guiding movement, shaping responses, and maintaining balance. Responsibilities are handled with intention, peace is preserved, and progress is steady. flowing from the alignment established at the very beginning, allowing every task, interaction, and decision to operate within a structure that supports clarity, purpose, and sustained effectiveness as the day continues to move forward under divine order. Alignment is the quiet power that determines whether a day unfolds in harmony or in resistance. When thoughts, actions, and decisions are not aligned, even good intentions can produce strain. Spiritual alignment brings coherence to the inner life so that what you think, what you say, and what you do move in the same direction. Prayer is the entry point of this alignment. It is the moment where scattered thoughts are gathered, motives are examined, and intentions are brought under divine influence. When alignment is established early, the day flows with clarity rather than conflict. Thoughts shape perception, and perception influences decisions. Without alignment, the mind becomes crowded with assumptions, fears, and expectations that distort reality. Prayer quiets this internal noise. It creates space for clarity to emerge. When thoughts are aligned with truth, reactions lose their intensity and decisions gain stability. Alignment of thought ensures that choices are not driven by anxiety or impulse, but by wisdom and discernment. Actions follow thoughts, whether consciously or unconsciously. When thoughts are misaligned, actions often contradict values. Prayer bridges this gap by bringing awareness to intention. It helps identify where behavior needs adjustment before it manifests. Aligning actions through prayer ensures consistency between belief and behavior. The day becomes an expression of purpose rather than a series of disconnected reactions. Decisions carry consequences that extend beyond the moment they are made. When decisions are made without alignment, they often require correction later. Prayer positions decisions within a broader perspective. It shifts focus from immediate gratification to long-term impact. Alignment allows decisions to be measured not only by convenience, but by calling, not only by urgency, but by significance. Spiritual alignment also brings integrity to daily living. Integrity is not perfection, but consistency. Prayer reveals areas where inconsistency exists and invites correction without condemnation. When alignment is present, integrity becomes natural. Words and actions reinforce each other. Commitments are honored not out of obligation, but out of alignment with purpose. Without alignment, energy is wasted. Internal conflict drains focus and creates fatigue. Prayer resolves these internal tensions. It aligns desire with direction and effort with intention. When alignment is restored, energy is conserved and productivity increases. Tasks feel lighter because resistance has been removed. Alignment also affects emotional stability. Emotions often fluctuate when internal alignment is disrupted. Prayer brings emotional regulation by grounding feelings in truth rather than circumstance. Aligning emotions through prayer does not suppress feeling, but places it within healthy boundaries. Responses become measured, and emotional reactions no longer dictate behavior. Decision-making becomes clearer when alignment is present. Prayer refines discernment, enabling recognition of what aligns with purpose and what does not. Choices become less confusing because alignment acts as a filter. Options that once seemed appealing lose their attraction when they do not align with values. Alignment simplifies complexity by clarifying direction. Spiritual alignment influences how challenges are interpreted. Without alignment, challenges are perceived as obstacles. With alignment, they are seen as opportunities for growth. Prayer shifts perspective so that adversity does not derail purpose. Alignment transforms difficulty into development by anchoring the mind in trust rather than fear. When thoughts are aligned, self-talk changes. Internal dialogue becomes constructive rather than critical. Prayer addresses the narratives that shape identity. Alignment replaces self-doubt with confidence rooted in truth. This shift impacts how decisions are made and how actions are carried out throughout the day. Alignment also strengthens discipline. When actions align with purpose, discipline feels less restrictive and more empowering. Prayer reinforces commitment by reconnecting actions to meaning. Habits become expressions of alignment rather than burdensome routines. Discipline flows naturally when alignment is maintained. Without alignment, distractions gain influence. Prayer sharpens focus by aligning attention with intention. It becomes easier to stay present and resist diversions that do not serve purpose. Alignment protects attention, allowing sustained engagement with what matters most. Spiritual alignment creates harmony between responsibility and desire. When these are misaligned, resentment can grow. Prayer realigns desire with responsibility, transforming obligation into service. This alignment changes attitude, making tasks feel purposeful rather than imposed. Alignment also impacts relational decisions. Prayer brings awareness to how actions affect others. It fosters empathy and patience. When alignment is present, communication is intentional, and conflict is approached with understanding rather than defensiveness. Decisions within relationships are guided by wisdom and compassion. Thoughts aligned with truth influence resilience. Prayer strengthens mental endurance by anchoring the mind in stability. Alignment prevents discouragement from taking root when outcomes differ from expectations. Decisions are made from confidence rather than insecurity, sustaining momentum even when results are delayed. Alignment also clarifies boundaries. Prayer reveals when to say yes and when to say no. When actions and decisions align with purpose, boundaries are easier to maintain. Alignment removes guilt associated with setting limits because choices are grounded in clarity rather than fear of disapproval. Spiritual alignment fosters consistency across different areas of life. The same values guide decisions at work, in relationships, and in private moments. Prayer reinforces this consistency by bringing all aspects of life under one guiding influence. Alignment integrates life rather than compartmentalizing it. When alignment governs the day, progress becomes intentional. Small decisions accumulate into meaningful direction. Prayer ensures that movement is not random, but purposeful. Alignment keeps actions connected to long-term vision, even during routine tasks. Alignment also deepens awareness of timing. Prayer attunes sensitivity to when to act and when to wait. Decisions made in alignment respect timing, preventing premature action or unnecessary delay. Alignment aligns effort with season, enhancing effectiveness. As alignment is maintained, confidence grows. Decisions are made with assurance because they are rooted in clarity. Actions are carried out with conviction because they reflect true intention. Thoughts remain focused because they are anchored in purpose. Prayer sustains this alignment throughout the day, continually recalibrating the inner compass, ensuring that every thought, every action, and every decision moves in harmony with divine intention, allowing the day to unfold with coherence, stability, and purposeful flow, guided by spiritual alignment. Daily prayer is the ignition point for spiritual activation. What remains dormant responds when faith is exercised through intentional connection. Favor, protection, and momentum are not random occurrences. They are activated dimensions released through alignment and declaration. When prayer is offered at the beginning of the day, it awakens what has been prepared but not yet engaged. It signals readiness, expectancy, and participation in divine flow. The day responds differently when it is initiated through prayer, because unseen systems are set in motion before visible activity begins. Favor is not merely kindness from others. It is divine influence that alters outcomes. Early prayer positions the heart to receive favor by aligning attitude and expectation. When prayer activates favor, conversations shift, opportunities surface, and resistance softens. Favor opens doors that effort alone cannot access. It causes timing to align and resources to appear at the right moment. Prayer at the start of the day invites this influence into every interaction, ensuring that the atmosphere surrounding decisions is supportive rather than obstructive. Protection is also activated through early prayer. Protection is not only physical safety, but emotional and mental guarding. The mind encounters countless impressions throughout the day, and without spiritual protection, these impressions accumulate into stress and distraction. Prayer establishes a boundary around thoughts, shielding the inner life from unnecessary intrusion. When protection is activated, negative influences lose their power to penetrate focus and peace. The day unfolds with stability because inner defenses are already established. Momentum is the forward movement that carries progress beyond initial effort. Early prayer releases momentum by aligning intention with direction. When momentum is activated, tasks flow more smoothly, transitions become easier, and obstacles diminish in intensity. Prayer energizes purpose, creating continuity between actions. Instead of starting and stopping, the day builds progressively, allowing small steps to compound into meaningful advancement. Early prayer also activates awareness. It heightens sensitivity to opportunities that might otherwise go unnoticed. Favor often appears subtly, requiring perception to recognize it. Prayer sharpens this perception, allowing recognition of openings within ordinary moments. Protection likewise requires awareness to respond appropriately. When prayer activates awareness, discernment becomes instinctive, guiding responses without hesitation. Favor thrives in environments of humility and gratitude. Early prayer cultivates this environment by redirecting focus from self-sufficiency to partnership. Gratitude expressed in prayer invites favor by acknowledging dependence on divine provision. This posture attracts assistance and cooperation throughout the day. Favor activated early creates ease without entitlement, progress without pressure. Protection activated through prayer extends to emotional resilience. Challenges do not disappear, but they lose their power to destabilize. Prayer fortifies emotional boundaries so reactions remain measured. Stressors are processed rather than absorbed. Protection ensures that peace is preserved even when demands increase. The day becomes navigable rather than overwhelming. Momentum activated early also influences motivation. Prayer reconnects action to purpose, sustaining energy beyond initial enthusiasm. Motivation rooted in alignment is steady rather than fluctuating. When momentum is present, persistence becomes natural. Tasks are approached with engagement instead of resistance. Prayer fuels this momentum by continually reinforcing direction. Early prayer synchronizes favor, protection, and momentum into a unified flow. Favor opens pathways. Protection guards focus, and momentum sustains movement. When these elements operate together, the day progresses with coherence. Each supports the other, creating an environment conducive to progress and peace. Favor activated through prayer also affects perception by others. Attitudes soften, communication improves, and cooperation increases. Prayer influences not only circumstances, but relationships. Favor manifests in how words are received and intentions are interpreted. Early prayer sets relational tone before interaction begins. Protection activated early includes clarity in decision-making. Confusion is a vulnerability that prayer addresses proactively. When clarity is established, decisions are made confidently. Protection guards against impulsive choices and misaligned commitments. Prayer shields discernment, preserving wisdom throughout the day. Momentum also protects against stagnation. Without momentum, even clear direction can feel heavy. Prayer energizes action, preventing delay from settling. Early activation ensures that progress begins promptly and continues steadily. Momentum carries effort forward, reducing the need for constant restart. Early prayer creates alignment between expectation and experience. When favor is expected, opportunities are recognized. When protection is expected, boundaries are respected. When momentum is expected, effort is sustained. Prayer aligns expectation with divine intention, making activation effective. Favor activated early also influences timing. Delays shorten and coordination improves. Prayer aligns schedules and interactions, reducing friction. Favor ensures that the right people and resources intersect at the right moments. Early prayer positions the day within this alignment. Protection, activated through prayer, also guards against discouragement. Disappointment loses its grip when perspective is anchored. Prayer reinforces trust, preventing setbacks from eroding confidence. Protection ensures that hope remains intact, even when outcomes differ from plans. Momentum activated early fosters adaptability. When change occurs, momentum adjusts direction without losing speed. Prayer cultivates flexibility by anchoring movement in purpose rather than rigid plans. Momentum continues even as methods shift. Early prayer also activates internal consistency. Actions align with values, reducing internal conflict. This consistency conserves energy and enhances focus. Favor, protection, and momentum are sustained when internal alignment is maintained. Favor activated early enhances confidence without arrogance. Prayer grounds confidence in partnership rather than self-reliance. This balance attracts support while maintaining humility. Favor flows through this posture naturally. Protection, activated early, guards against unnecessary comparison. Prayer centers identity, preventing external benchmarks from dictating worth. Protection preserves contentment and focus, allowing engagement without distraction. Momentum activated early transforms effort into rhythm. The day gains a cadence that supports sustained engagement. Prayer establishes this rhythm by aligning energy with intention. Momentum carries the day forward smoothly. Early prayer continually reinforces activation throughout the day. Each moment builds upon the previous one, maintaining flow. Favor continues to open pathways. Protection continues to guard peace. And momentum continues to propel progress. The day unfolds within this activated state, guided by alignment, supported by divine influence, and sustained by the intentional choice to begin with prayer that awakened favor, established protection, and released momentum from the very first moment of the day. Good morning, Victorious One. Today is Monday, December 29th, 2025. A brand new day, a fresh beginning, a divine opportunity to align your heart with heaven's purposes. Wherever you are, I want you to know that today is not ordinary, it is extraordinary. For the Lord has destined it for your breakthrough. As we begin this day together, we are not starting with the world, we are starting with God. We are lifting our hearts, our minds, and our spirits into the presence of the Almighty. And I want you to declare with me, this day I will walk in His favor, I will operate in His wisdom, and I will embrace the victory He has prepared for me. So if you're ready to step into this day, fully empowered, to release every burden and step into the divine purpose for your life, join me now as we start our day with prayer. Let's position ourselves to receive God's abundance, His protection, and His guidance in every step we take. Aligning your spirit with God at the start of the day is an intentional act that shifts the entire trajectory of your life, because the first moments of the morning set the tone for every thought, every decision, and every interaction that will unfold. When you awaken, your spirit is the most open, the most receptive, and the most sensitive to the whispers of the Holy Spirit. The atmosphere is quieter. Distractions have not yet rushed in, and your mind has not been flooded by the demands of responsibilities. These early moments carry spiritual weight. They determine the direction of your inner life and either anchor you in divine strength or leave you vulnerable to the chaos of the world. When you align your spirit with God before anything else, you are acknowledging His sovereignty and inviting His presence to go before you in every task, conversation, and assignment. This alignment is not merely a ritual, but a divine positioning, a sacred act that places you under heaven's order rather than earthly disorder. To align your spirit with God means surrendering the noise of yesterday, releasing every lingering weight, and allowing the breath of God to fill your inner being. It is a resetting of your spiritual compass, ensuring that you are tuned to the frequency of heaven rather than the fluctuating vibrations of your emotions or circumstances. This alignment requires intention because the natural drift of the human heart is toward busyness, distraction, and self-reliance. When you consciously choose to quiet your soul before God, you are realigning your priorities with the divine blueprint. You are declaring that before you look at a screen, respond to an email, or consider a single task, you will look to the one who holds your purpose, your strength, and your day. This sacred discipline creates spiritual clarity, the kind of clarity that allows you to discern God's voice above all others and walk with a sense of direction that cannot be shaken. When you align your spirit with God early, you also begin the day with spiritual authority. Spiritual authority does not emerge from human willpower, but from divine connection. The person who begins in prayer stands taller spiritually throughout the day, not because of personal strength, but because they have consciously stepped into God's strength. This alignment releases peace, the kind of peace that stabilizes your emotions and settles your thoughts. It releases wisdom, the kind of wisdom that helps you navigate challenges that may arise unexpectedly. It releases discernment, enabling you to recognize distractions, spiritual interference, and negative influences before they can take root. You find yourself responding rather than reacting, listening rather than rushing, and moving with intention rather than being pulled by external pressures. Aligning your spirit with God at the start of the day also invites divine favor into places you have not yet entered. Favor opens doors no human can shut, surrounds you like a shield, and goes before you in conversations, appointments, and decisions. It positions you to receive opportunities you were not expecting and connections you could not have orchestrated. When your spirit is aligned with heaven, you carry a spiritual fragrance, a presence of grace and confidence that others can sense even if they cannot explain it. You begin to move through the day with a quiet assurance, not because everything is perfect, but because your inner life has been anchored in God's presence before you faced the world's demands. This alignment also establishes emotional and mental stability. When your spirit is grounded in God's presence, anxiety loses its grip, fear weakens, and confusion dissipates. The mind becomes sharper, clearer, and more focused. Thoughts that may have been scattered become ordered. Emotional burdens begin to lift because your spirit has taken authority over your soul rather than your soul dictating the atmosphere of your spirit. This is why the enemy often fights people hardest in the morning, trying to distract them with urgency, fatigue, or mental noise. But when you choose alignment with God, you break these patterns and establish a new rhythm for your day, one dominated not by stress, but by peace, not by doubt, but by faith, not by exhaustion, but by supernatural strength. Aligning your spirit with God also activates the divine guidance needed for the decisions ahead. Even small decisions shape the larger structure of your life. God speaks in the morning in ways that can prevent wrong turns, wasted time, or unnecessary battles. He provides direction that spares you from pitfalls you cannot foresee on your own. When you align with Him first, you give Him permission to orchestrate your steps, adjust your path, and redirect your plans according to His higher wisdom. You become more sensitive to His nudges, more aware of His whisper, more obedient to His prompting. This spiritual sensitivity becomes a compass throughout the day, guiding you with confidence that you are not walking alone. The alignment also establishes spiritual protection. Many battles begin before the day even starts in the realm of the unseen. Prayer in the morning fortifies your spirit, builds a hedge around your mind, and creates a shield around your life. It establishes boundaries that darkness cannot easily cross. When you align your spirit with God, you are stepping under His covering, allowing His angels to guard your steps and His presence to surround you. You speak into your day with authority, dismantling every plan of the enemy before it has the chance to unfold. Instead of being blindsided by attacks, you are spiritually prepared, fortified, and alert. Finally, aligning your spirit with God at the start of the day awakens purpose. You are reminded of who you are, whose you are, and why you are here. It pulls you out of autopilot and into intentional living. It reconnects you with your assignment, your identity, and your calling. Purpose becomes clearer, distractions become smaller, and the day becomes infused with meaning. You begin to carry yourself with the awareness that your life is not random, your steps are not accidental, and your day is not wasted. You walk through your morning and into your afternoon with spiritual momentum that began with divine alignment, allowing God to breathe direction, strength, and clarity into everything you touch. Declaring authority over your atmosphere is an intentional spiritual act that shifts the environment around you from passivity to divine order. Every day carries its own set of energies, influences, and pressures. And if you do not consciously establish spiritual authority from the start, the atmosphere will dictate your mood, your decisions, and your productivity. When you awaken and begin to speak with authority, you are not simply forming words. You are releasing power, shaping the unseen realm, and commanding everything around you to align with heaven's will. The atmosphere responds to spiritual authority because authority originates from God. And when you speak from that place of alignment, your words become instruments of change. Declaring authority is about deciding that you will not be reactive to circumstances, but proactive in setting the tone for your day, your home, your environment, and your inner world. Your atmosphere is not limited to the physical space you occupy. It includes your emotional space, your mental space, and the spiritual climate that surrounds you. Atmospheres contain memories, patterns, habits, and even spiritual residue from previous days or seasons. When you declare authority, you are clearing out what is stale, negative, or misaligned, and replacing it with what is intentional, purposeful, and God-ordained. You are refusing to let the atmosphere set you. Instead, you are setting the atmosphere. This is why people who walk in spiritual authority often carry peace, even in chaotic environments. They have learned to govern their atmosphere rather than be governed by it. Words carry weight in the spiritual realm, and declarations spoken with faith become boundaries, commands, and spiritual structures that shift reality around you. Declaring authority is not about shouting, nor is it about forcing your will. It's about speaking out of your God-given identity. God entrusted you with dominion, and dominion is exercised through the words you speak. When you declare, you are activating identity. You are reminding your atmosphere that you are not a victim of emotions, circumstances, or spiritual interference. You are declaring that you stand under divine covering, and therefore nothing has the right to invade your environment without your permission. Authority is exercised when you take responsibility for the spiritual tone of your life. You refuse to allow fear, confusion, discouragement, or heaviness to linger because you have the authority to command them to leave. You have the authority to decree peace, clarity, joy, and productivity. By declaring authority, you are partnering with the Holy Spirit to establish a spiritual boundary around your day. Every atmosphere is influenced by what is spoken into it. Words create pathways for spiritual forces to operate. Negative speech invites heaviness. Worry-filled speech invites anxiety. Idle speech creates instability. But declarations of authority grounded in scripture and faith release power, clarity, and divine protection. When you speak with authority, you are releasing spiritual laws that override emotional impulses and environmental pressures. You are building an atmosphere that supports your assignment, strengthens your faith, and aligns your steps. You are setting the spiritual climate in such a way that heaven has room to move. This act of declaring is not random. It is structured, intentional, and empowered by God's word. Declaring authority over your atmosphere also requires awareness of the spiritual battles that attempt to manipulate your emotional state. Atmospheres can shift subtly through tension, negativity, unexpected interruptions, or emotional triggers. When you do not declare authority, you can absorb these shifts unknowingly, and before long, you feel off balance without understanding why. But when authority is declared early and consistently, you become spiritually sensitive to these influences. You recognize when something foreign enters your atmosphere. You can discern when your peace is being tampered with, when your joy is under threat, or when confusion tries to creep in. Authority makes you spiritually alert. It sharpens your discernment and gives you the ability to respond with precision rather than emotion. Declaring authority over your atmosphere also establishes spiritual boundaries. Boundaries protect what is valuable. Your peace is valuable. Your clarity is valuable. Your energy is valuable. Your time is valuable. Spiritual boundaries tell darkness, distractions, and draining influences that they cannot cross into your space. Boundaries make it clear that your life is under divine jurisdiction. This is why people who consistently declare authority are not easily shaken. They live within a fortified spiritual perimeter. Nothing enters their atmosphere without being filtered through their declarations. Their home feels different. Their mind feels different. Their day moves differently. Authority creates order, and order creates stability. When you declare authority, you are also setting the emotional temperature for the day. If you do not speak to your emotions will speak to you. If you do not command your thoughts will command you. If you do not establish peace, the atmosphere will default to whatever influences it. But when you declare authority, you are speaking to your own soul. You are commanding your mind to think clearly, your emotions to stabilize, and your spirit to rise above every pressure. You are declaring that no matter what happens, you will not be shaken, you will not be moved, and you will not be pulled out of alignment with God's presence. Authority sets the tone so that external circumstances cannot dictate internal conditions. Declaring authority over your atmosphere also partners with divine protection. Angels respond to declarations rooted in faith. When you speak words of authority, you activate the spiritual forces assigned to protect, guide, and strengthen you. You are not simply speaking into the air, you are speaking into the spiritual realm, where angels' assignments and divine interventions are activated by faith-filled words. Authority creates a shield. It creates a divine covering. It creates a hedge against spiritual attacks that would otherwise slip in unnoticed. This is why beginning your day with declarations is powerful. You are establishing protection before the day has the chance to introduce challenges or distractions. Declaring authority also breaks cycles. Cycles of procrastination, cycles of self-doubt, cycles of emotional heaviness, cycles of negativity, and cycles of spiritual stagnation. When you declare authority consistently, you interrupt patterns that have been operating in your life for years. You refuse to allow old atmospheres to dictate new seasons. You take control of your narrative. You take control of your habits. You take control of your inner world. Authority is not just about what happens around you. It is about what happens within you. When your inner atmosphere is aligned with God's authority, your outer atmosphere begins to reflect that power. Declaring authority over your atmosphere is ultimately an act of spiritual stewardship. God has entrusted you with influence, with purpose, with assignments, and with the power to create change through the words you speak. When you declare authority, you are stewarding your day, you're stewarding your energy, you're stewarding your environment. You are choosing to live intentionally rather than accidentally, powerfully rather than passively, spiritually awakened rather than spiritually dormant. You are stepping into the role God designed for you, not as someone carried by circumstances, but as someone who shapes them through divine authority. Activating divine favor and protection begins with an awareness that God's presence is not abstract, but active, intentional, and deeply involved in the details of your life. Divine favor is not luck, coincidence, or random blessing. It is God's supernatural influence leaning in your direction, opening doors you could not open, positioning you in places you could not reach, and granting you advantages that defy natural explanation. Protection is the hedge God places around you, seen and unseen, shielding you from battles you never even knew were coming, redirecting danger that was meant to derail you, and securing your path so you can fulfill what He has destined you to accomplish. Activating these two forces at the start of your day is not merely a spiritual exercise. It is a strategic alignment with God's covering, ensuring that you are not moving through the world in your own strength, but under the supernatural canopy of heaven. Divine favor cannot be earned. It is a gift, but it must be activated. It is activated through belief, through declaration, and through intentional alignment with God's will. When you begin your day by speaking favor over your life, you are giving heaven permission to move on your behalf. You are opening the spiritual gates for opportunities to flow to you, for resources to locate you, and for people to be touched by God in such a way that they willingly support, uplift, and advocate for you. Favor turns ordinary encounters into extraordinary moments. It turns brief conversations into divine connections. It turns your name into a recommendation spoken in rooms you have never entered. Favor works behind the scenes, arranging circumstances so that what could have been difficult becomes easy, and what should have taken years happens in months. Activating divine protection is equally vital. Life is filled with unpredictable elements, both natural and spiritual. There are dangers you can see, and there are forces and influences you cannot. But when you call upon divine protection at the start of your day, you are clothing yourself in a spiritual armor that shields your spirit, your mind, your emotions, and your physical body from harm. Protection is not fear-based. It is faith-based. It is the acknowledgement that God goes before you, walks with you, and surrounds you. It is the confidence that no matter what the day brings, you are not uncovered, unguarded, or alone. When you declare protection, you are activating angelic assignment, reinforcing your spiritual walls, and ensuring that no weapon formed against you can prosper in any dimension of your life. Divine favor and protection are connected. Favor opens the door, and protection keeps what God has given you safe. Favor positions you, and protection preserves your position. Favor allows you access, and protection secures your access. When both are activated, you walk through your day with a sense of holy confidence. You stop moving timidly or fearfully because you know you are backed by heaven. You begin to expect good things to happen. You begin to anticipate breakthroughs. You begin to operate with the inner assurance that every step you take is guided and guarded by God. To activate divine favor, you must speak it. Words are the key that unlocks spiritual realities. When you declare favor over your day, you are prophesying into your own future. You are instructing the spiritual realm to align with God's promises. You are commanding opportunities to locate you and declaring that your life is fertile ground for blessing. You begin to say things like, today I walk in God's favor. Today doors open for me. Today resources flow toward me. Today people see me through the eyes of grace. These are not empty statements. They are spiritual decrees that create movement in the unseen realm. Favor responds to faith. It responds to expectation. It responds to the boldness of someone who knows who they are in God. Activating divine protection works in a similar way. When you speak protection, you are building a wall around your life. You are declaring that nothing assigned to derail you can touch you. You are releasing angelic forces to guard your steps, your home, your family, your work, and your mind. You are canceling spiritual attacks before they even manifest. You are dismantling every plot, scheme, and agenda of darkness. Protection is not passive, it is active. It is a spiritual shield you put on deliberately every morning when you say, I am covered, I am shielded, I am guarded by God's hand. You are reinforcing your divine security system. Activating favor and protection also requires maintaining a posture of gratitude. Gratitude amplifies favor. When you thank God for what He has done, you position your heart to receive more. Gratitude shifts your focus from lack to abundance, from fear to confidence, from anxiety to expectation. A grateful heart is fertile ground for divine favor to grow. And gratitude strengthens your awareness of God's protection. When you reflect on how many times God has preserved your life, delivered you, or redirected you, you begin to recognize that protection is not an occasional intervention. It is a continuous operation. Favor and protection also influence how you carry yourself. People who activate these spiritual forces walk differently. They make decisions with clarity. They trust divine timing more. They are not easily intimidated or discouraged because they know heaven is backing them. Their confidence is not arrogance. It is rooted in God's presence. When you activate favor and protection, you stop competing with others because you understand that what is for you cannot be taken from you. You stop fearing failure because you know God has already made provision for your success. You move through challenges with resilience because you know protection covers you, even in adversity. Divine favor also accelerates. It takes you further than your qualifications, your background, or your network could take you. When you walk in favor, closed doors open, impossible situations shift, and unexpected solutions appear. Divine favor overrides human limitations. It places you in strategic positions at strategic moments. It brings your name before the right people. It creates opportunities that align with your destiny. But this level of favor requires intentional activation. You must choose every morning to step into it by faith. Divine protection is equally dynamic. It is not a static shield. It is an active force that adapts to your day. It protects your peace when anxiety tries to rise. It shields your mind when negativity tries to infiltrate. It guards your spirit when distractions try to pull you off course. It covers your body when physical danger appears. It surrounds your home, your travel, your relationships, and your assignments. Protection ensures that no matter what the enemy tries, it cannot prosper. Activating divine favor and protection ultimately shifts how you experience each day. Instead of waking up wondering what might go wrong, you begin waking up expecting what God will make right. You move from worry to confidence, from fear to assurance, from striving to supernatural ease. You begin to understand that you are not designed to navigate life uncovered. You were meant to walk under the canopy of God's favor and the shield of His protection, empowered, supported, and surrounded on every side. Rejecting distractions and spiritual interference is a deliberate and disciplined act that sets the tone for a focused, productive, and spiritually aligned day. Distractions are not always loud, obvious, or dramatic. Sometimes they come disguised as necessities, impulses, emotions, or even opportunities that appear good but are not God ordained. Spiritual interference often works subtly, pulling your attention away from your purpose, draining your energy, or clouding your discernment. When you choose to reject distractions, you are making a declaration that your time, your mind, and your spirit are too valuable to be scattered. You are claiming ownership of your attention and refusing to allow anything to hijack your focus or dilute your power. This is not simply about avoiding interruptions. It is about guarding your inner world with vigilance and intentionality. Every day you are faced with countless demands for your attention. Notifications, conversations, worries, ideas, and responsibilities all compete for mental and emotional space. If you do not consciously guard that space, you become reactive rather than proactive, allowing the loudest voices to dominate rather than the most important ones. Rejecting distractions begins with awareness, recognizing what pulls you away from purpose, what drains you, and what disrupts your peace. Some distractions are external, like noise, busyness, or the demands of others. Others are internal, such as fear, overthinking, emotional triggers, or old habits. To reject distractions, you must first identify them. You must discern the difference between what is urgent and what is essential, between what is demanding your time and what truly deserves it. Spiritual interference operates on a deeper level. It is the subtle pressure that tries to pull you out of alignment with God's presence. It can manifest as sudden confusion, unexplained emotional heaviness, irritation, fatigue, or the feeling of mental fog. These moments are not random. They are often strategic attempts to disrupt your clarity and derail your momentum. When you understand this, you stop taking everything at face value. You begin to notice when something feels off. You recognize when your spirit is being pulled in a direction that does not reflect peace or purpose. Rejecting spiritual interference means refusing to allow these subtle disruptions to dictate your mood, your reactions, or your decisions. Rejecting distractions requires boundaries. Boundaries protect your focus, your energy, and your spiritual posture. Without boundaries, your day becomes vulnerable to chaos and your attention becomes scattered across things that hold no eternal value. A boundary can be as simple as setting a time to pray before checking messages, limiting your exposure to draining conversations, or creating intentional pauses throughout the day to recenter yourself. Boundaries are not walls that isolate you. They are filters that protect what is valuable. When you set boundaries, you are telling your mind and spirit that you will not be available to everything, but you will be fully available to the things that matter most. Rejecting distractions is also a matter of authority. You must learn to speak to your atmosphere and command clarity. When your thoughts begin to wander into unproductive places, you have the authority to call your mind back into alignment. When worry tries to dominate your thinking, you have the power to interrupt it with faith-filled declarations. When anxiety tries to creep in, you can reject it and replace it with peace. Authority means you do not let your emotions run unchecked or allow your thoughts to spiral without intervention. You step in and take control. You speak order into chaos. You choose what you will meditate on and what you will refuse to entertain. Spiritual interference thrives in environments where there is no intentional spiritual discipline. When you cultivate habits of prayer, meditation, reflection, and worship, you create an atmosphere that is hostile to interference. A spiritually disciplined mind is less susceptible to confusion. A heart anchored in prayer is less vulnerable to anxiety. A spirit attuned to God is less likely to be shaken by external pressures. Rejecting interference is not just about saying no to negative influences. It is about strengthening your spiritual foundation so that interference has no place to attach itself. The stronger your alignment with God, the harder it becomes for anything else to pull you off course. Rejecting distractions also requires being fully present. Presence is powerful. When you are present, you are aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your surroundings, and the voice of God. Distractions thrive when your mind is split, when your emotions are unsettled, or when your attention is divided. By practicing presence, you are choosing to inhabit your moment fully, giving your best attention to what God has placed before you. Presence sharpens your discernment. It helps you sense when something is pulling you away from your center. It allows you to catch yourself before drifting into habits, thoughts, or behaviors that weaken your spiritual posture. Many distractions are rooted in unresolved internal issues. Old patterns, lingering insecurities, or unhealed wounds often resurface when you are trying to advance. These internal distractions must be confronted, not ignored. Rejecting distractions therefore involves doing the inner work necessary to heal what keeps pulling you backward. When you recognize that certain distractions consistently show up in your life, you begin to understand that they are not random. They are patterns designed to weaken your spiritual momentum. Identifying these patterns is the first step toward breaking them. Rejecting spiritual interference also involves recognizing when the enemy tries to amplify negative emotions. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed, not because your situation is overwhelming, but because spiritual pressure is at work. Sometimes confusion hits, not because you lack clarity, but because interference is clouding your perception. When you understand this dynamic, you stop accepting every emotion as truth. You stop believing every thought as reality. You begin to separate spiritual attacks from genuine concerns, giving you authority over what you allow to influence you. Rejecting distractions and interference is also about protecting your peace. Peace is not passive, it is powerful. Peace gives you clarity. Peace strengthens your decisions. Peace protects your mind. Anything that threatens peace should be addressed quickly and firmly. When something disturbs your peace, it is often a sign that your spirit is alerting you to a distraction or interference. Peace is one of the greatest indicators that you are aligned with God's will. Therefore, anything that disrupts your peace must be examined and resist. Rejecting distractions also allows you to steward your purpose with focus. Purpose requires clarity, and clarity requires the absence of unnecessary noise. When you eliminate distractions, you free your mind to think deeply, your spirit to discern accurately, and your energy to flow toward what God has assigned you to do. Purpose does not thrive in clutter. It thrives where intentionality reigns. When you choose to reject distractions daily, you create a lifestyle of focus that becomes a spiritual force, strengthening your effectiveness, sharpening your decisions, and expanding your capacity. Ultimately, rejecting distractions and spiritual interference positions you to walk with authority, clarity, and spiritual strength throughout your day. It empowers you to remain centered in God's presence, grounded in your purpose, and aligned with His will regardless of what comes your way. Positioning yourself for breakthrough and purpose begins with the recognition that nothing in your life shifts by accident. Breakthrough is intentional, purpose is intentional, and the alignment required to step into both must also be intentional. Each day presents fresh opportunities to move closer to the vision God has placed inside you, but stepping into that requires preparing your heart, your mind, and your spirit to recognize and respond to divine movement. Positioning is an act of readiness, being spiritually awake, mentally focused, and emotionally available for what God desires to do. When you position yourself for breakthrough, you are declaring that you will not simply drift through the day, but will engage it with expectancy, faith, and direction. Positioning begins with your mindset. Breakthrough requires a mind that is open to possibility, willing to change, and ready to release old patterns. A mind that is stuck in fear, doubt, or limitation cannot perceive the opportunities God places before it. Many breakthroughs are missed, not because God didn't send them, but because the mind was not prepared to recognize them. To position yourself for breakthrough, you must adopt a mindset that expects God's movement, that believes good things are happening, and that refuses to be anchored to past disappointments. It is a mindset that understands that your future is not dictated by your past, but by your alignment with God's purpose. Purpose requires clarity. Positioning yourself for purpose means taking the time to reflect on what God has called you to do, who He has called you to be, and what assignments He has placed in your hands. Purpose becomes obscured when life becomes cluttered with distractions, obligations, or comparison. When you intentionally position yourself, you clear out the noise so you can hear God clearly. You create mental and spiritual space for revelation. You allow yourself to be guided rather than pushed by the demands of life. Purpose becomes clearer when you slow down enough to pay attention to the whispers of the Holy Spirit, who nudges you toward the direction you were created to walk in. Positioning yourself for breakthrough also demands faith. Breakthrough rarely happens in comfort zones. It often requires stepping into unfamiliar territory, taking steps that feel bold, and believing even when you cannot yet see results. Faith is the bridge between where you are and where God is taking you. Without faith, you remain stationary, but with faith, you step into momentum. You position yourself by choosing to believe that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating details, preparing answers, and opening doors. You position yourself by trusting that what God started in you, He will bring to completion, even when the process feels slow or uncertain. Your posture matters. Positioning is not passive. It is an active stance of expectation. It is standing in readiness, like a runner at the starting line, anticipating the signal to launch. When your posture is one of readiness, you don't hesitate when opportunity arises. You don't freeze in fear when God opens a door. You don't doubt the moment. Instead, you move with confidence because you have been preparing your spirit for movement. Purpose requires this readiness. Breakthrough requires this readiness. To position yourself means to remove excuses, silence, doubt, and prepare yourself for yes. Positioning also involves prayer. Prayer opens spiritual pathways and clears spiritual blockages. It attunes your spirit to God's direction. When you pray, you are not simply asking for breakthrough, you are aligning yourself with the one who creates breakthrough. Prayer shifts your internal environment so that you can receive divine instruction. It tunes your heart to God's heartbeat. It turns your attention away from obstacles and toward possibilities. Prayer is one of the most powerful positioning tools because it creates spiritual sensitivity. You begin to notice divine timing. You begin to perceive divine nudges. You begin to sense when God is shifting something in your life. Prayer prepares you for movement before movement occurs. To position yourself for breakthrough, you must also be willing to let go of what no longer serves your purpose. Breakthrough often requires releasing old habits, old relationships, old insecurities, or old methods of thinking. You cannot step into new seasons while clinging to what belongs to the old ones. Positioning means making room. It means uncluttering your mind, your schedule, your environment, and even your heart. It means letting go of bitterness, releasing regret, and forgiving what needs to be forgiven so your spirit can move unhindered. Breakthrough flows where there is space for it to land. Positioning yourself for purpose requires alignment. Every part of your life must move toward the direction God is calling you to go. Your habits must align with your purpose. Your relationships must support your purpose. Your decisions must reflect your purpose. Your environment must nurture your purpose. You cannot position yourself for breakthrough while living out of alignment. Alignment means saying yes to what God has assigned and no to what distracts, drains, or delays. It means being honest about who you are becoming and intentional about who you want to be. Positioning also includes preparation. Preparation is evidence of expectation. When you believe breakthrough is coming, you prepare for it. You study, you plan, you practice, you refine your skills. You organize your life in a way that anticipates growth. People waiting for breakthrough without preparation often miss the moment because they were not ready to step into it. Preparation is a form of faith. It says, I trust that what God promised will manifest, so I will be ready when it does. Purpose flourishes in an environment of preparation. Breakthrough often arrives at the intersection of preparation and divine timing. Positioning yourself for breakthrough means protecting your energy. Breakthrough carries weight, and you need strength to handle it. Emotional exhaustion, mental clutter, and spiritual depletion all interfere with your ability to perceive or respond to breakthrough. Protecting your energy means setting boundaries, resting when needed, saying no when necessary, and refusing to invest in situations that drain you. Breakthrough requires capacity. Purpose requires stamina. You cannot pour from an empty spirit. Positioning means ensuring that your energy is preserved for what truly matters. Positioning also requires humility. Breakthrough sometimes comes in ways you did not expect or through people you did not anticipate. Humility keeps your heart open to God's methods. It allows you to be teachable, flexible, and willing to adjust. Pride restricts purpose. Humility expands it. Humility keeps you grounded so that when breakthrough comes, you remain anchored in gratitude and dependent on God rather than on your own strength. Positioning yourself for breakthrough and purpose means cultivating consistency. Consistency builds momentum. It strengthens discipline. It creates habits that support purpose rather than sabotage it. Breakthrough is often the result of small, consistent steps rather than one dramatic leap. When you commit to daily alignment, daily prayer, daily discipline, and daily expectation, you create a lifestyle that attracts breakthrough rather than one that simply waits for it. Ultimately, positioning yourself for breakthrough and purpose is about living with intentionality. It is choosing to rise above complacency. It is choosing to believe that God has more for you. It is choosing to take responsibility for your growth. It is choosing to prepare yourself for the divine opportunities that have already been set in motion. When you position yourself, you align your life with God's timing, God's guidance, and God's plan, creating the spiritual, mental, and emotional readiness needed to step fully into the breakthrough and purpose designed uniquely for you. Walking boldly in God's wisdom and strength begins with the deep understanding that you were never designed to navigate life by your own limited insight or fragile human capacity. God offers you access to a well of wisdom that transcends circumstance, surpasses logic, and outmaneuvers every strategy of the enemy. When you walk in his wisdom, you are drawing from a divine reservoir that equips you to see beyond the surface, discern beyond emotion, and choose beyond impulse. Wisdom gives you clarity in confusion, direction in uncertainty, and confidence in the midst of shifting seasons. Strength empowers you to carry what wisdom reveals, to act on what God instructs, and to endure and overcome what life presents. To walk boldly in these two divine gifts is to live with an assurance that you are never unprepared, never unprotected, and never without guidance. Wisdom is more than knowledge. It is God's perspective. It is the ability to see situations through his eyes, to interpret events with spiritual understanding, and to recognize the deeper meaning behind what others may overlook. When you walk in God's wisdom, you are not swayed by temporary emotions or external pressures. You make decisions anchored in discernment. You speak with intentionality rather than reaction. Wisdom becomes the compass guiding your steps, the filter guarding your heart, and the light illuminating your path. It helps you avoid unnecessary battles, bypass hidden traps, and recognize divine opportunities. Wisdom is a spiritual shield that protects your destiny by helping you choose correctly and move deliberately. Walking boldly means not hesitating when God reveals something. Wisdom without boldness becomes insight that goes unused. God gives wisdom so you can act on it confidently. Boldness is the courage to step forward when God speaks, even when the path is unfamiliar. It is the strength to follow divine instruction when it contradicts comfort zones. It is the willingness to trust God's direction even when others cannot see what you see. Boldness is not recklessness. It is obedience with courage. It is faith in motion. When you combine wisdom with holy boldness, your life becomes a demonstration of God's power and guidance. Walking in God's strength means acknowledging that there are battles you cannot win with willpower, burdens you cannot carry alone, and seasons you cannot endure without divine reinforcement. Human strength is limited and easily depleted. God's strength is inexhaustible. When you draw from His strength, you tap into a power source that renews you, stabilizes you, and equips you. God's strength sustains you when adversity rises, lifts you when fatigue sets in, and carries you when your natural endurance fails. It is the strength that empowers you to stand firm when others expect you to fall, to keep moving when circumstances try to immobilize you, and to stay grounded when storms attempt to uproot you. Walking boldly in God's wisdom and strength means refusing to operate out of fear. Fear clouds judgment, weakens resolve, and silences faith. Wisdom cuts through fear by reminding you of God's truth. Strength overcomes fear by empowering you to act in spite of it. When you walk boldly, fear loses its influence because your decisions are guided not by insecurity but by revelation. Boldness allows you to step into assignments that seem too big, confront challenges that seem overwhelming, and pursue dreams that seem impossible. Wisdom informs your steps. Strength empowers your steps. This kind of walking requires intimacy with God. Wisdom flows from relationship. Strength flows from connection. The more time you spend in God's presence, the more clearly you hear His voice and recognize His leading. His wisdom becomes familiar. His strength becomes your foundation. You begin to sense His nudges, His warnings, and His confirmations. You start to move with a confidence that does not come from your abilities, but from His guidance. Intimacy sharpens discernment. It quiets internal noise. It aligns your desires with His will. The closer you walk with God, the more boldly you move through the world, because you know you are backed by divine insight and supernatural strength. Walking boldly in God's wisdom means being willing to go against the flow. Wisdom will often direct you in ways that differ from the majority. It will call you to paths that require faith, conviction, and discernment. Wisdom might ask you to wait when others rush or to move when others hesitate. It may instruct you to speak gently when others shout or to stand firm when others compromise. Divine wisdom elevates you above the patterns of the world, enabling you to make decisions from a place of clarity rather than pressure. This boldness is not loud, it is steady. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows they are guided by truth. Walking boldly in God's strength means refusing to shrink back when challenges arise. Strength does not always manifest as physical might. Sometimes it is the endurance to keep believing, the stability to stay calm, or the resilience to press forward. Strength allows you to withstand spiritual warfare, emotional pressure, and mental fatigue. It keeps your faith anchored. It keeps your spirit unshaken. It keeps your heart steady. When you walk in God's strength, you are not easily overwhelmed. You enter each day knowing that whatever comes, God has already equipped you to handle it. Walking boldly in God's wisdom and strength means taking responsibility for the condition of your inner world. Wisdom requires a clear mind. Strength requires a healthy spirit. You must guard your inner environment by rejecting negativity, managing your thoughts, and protecting your peace. Wisdom cannot flourish in chaos. Strength cannot grow in spiritual neglect. You must cultivate habits that nurture clarity. Prayer, meditation, reflection, worship, and stillness. You must intentionally guard against influences that weaken your resolve or cloud your discernment. When your inner world is aligned with God, wisdom flows easily and strength rises naturally. Walking boldly means embracing growth. Wisdom grows as you learn. Strength grows as you stretch. Breakthrough requires maturity. Purpose requires development. When you walk in God's wisdom and strength, you allow Him to refine your character, sharpen your discernment, and strengthen your resilience. You stop resisting growth and begin to welcome the lessons that shape you. Wisdom teaches you. Strength transforms you. Boldness emerges from the combination of both. Walking boldly in God's wisdom and strength means refusing to settle for mediocrity. Wisdom calls you higher. Strength pushes you further. Boldness keeps you moving. You begin to expect more from life because you know God has deposited greatness within you. You stop tolerating environments or habits that stunt your growth. You stop accepting limitations God never placed on you. Wisdom shows you what is possible. Strength helps you pursue it. Boldness ensures you do not hold back. Walking boldly also means influencing others. When people see the steadiness of your wisdom and the resilience of your strength, they are encouraged, inspired, and uplifted. Your life becomes a testimony. Your decisions become examples. Your faith becomes contagious. Walking boldly is not only for your benefit, it becomes a light for others who need direction, courage, and hope. You demonstrate what it looks like to walk with God, trust God, and rely on God in every area of life. Ultimately, walking boldly in God's wisdom and strength means embracing the fullness of who God has created you to be. You step into each day with confidence, clarity, and conviction. You move with purpose. You stand with authority. You listen with discernment. You endure with power. You rise with courage. You walk not by your own might, but by the overflowing wisdom and strength that God freely gives to every person who seeks Him and trusts